I also remember a video. I think it was Chris Rock had a joke about, and like it was a joke, but it kind of really kind of hit true. And he was talking about how love for men can be conditional, and like if you aren't, and we kind of talked about this, right? If you're not providing something, you're worthless, right? Like so, really, the love for men, and it's. I mean, of course, I'm speaking broadly here. This is a broad stroke, right? So you have to be very careful, right? That individuals might not be as connected to this as we think they are, right? We don't want to project and say everyone thinks this way, but yeah, sometimes for men, if you've had a rough year, especially with layoffs or firing, your value as a man is lowered in the eyes of the public and sometimes with your romantic partner.
Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Weekly Bustle. Today, I am joined by an interesting guest. And like always, I do not want to know anything about the guest beforehand. So, this will be a very interesting introduction from myself as well. We're going to learn together, you and me both. So, without further ado, I want to talk to you, Richard. Richard, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on.
Great. Richard, where are you based?
I'm in San Francisco, California. Actually, yeah,
Ah,
I grew up in the Bay Area. Well, I mean, some people would say it's the Bay Area, but I grew up in Northern California, and I've lived here in the city for over 10 and a half years now.
really?
Yeah.
Living abroad, American culture is so embedded in your day to day, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you hear a lot about San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York. So how is it? How's life in San Francisco?
Like there's like two San Franciscos. I think we're definitely like I think that the extremes are really apparent. I mean,
Really?
what you see in the yeah, I think what you see in the media is that there's this what they call the doom loop. We haven't really recovered from COVID.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of crime, and while all that's true in certain areas, there's another side of San Francisco where the
Yeah.
people who stayed here after COVID have really um, kind of bonded, and we're still there's the spirit of the city seems to be kind of coming back. So yeah, I think there's a tale of two cities kind of thing, but I'm sure that that's apparent everywhere. It's just
Yeah,
the
no, but it's
media doesn't
beautiful.
portray the city very well.
Yeah, I've heard about the doom cycle because
Yeah.
most of San Francisco's Bay Area, especially, is based like a lot of tech companies are based there, right? So
Yeah.
after COVID, they were very like confident in their systems and infrastructure that they were like, we can go remote, it's perfectly fine. And
Hmm.
apparently, the people really took that literally. They were like, you know what? Why pay so much rent and why pay so much like exuberant prices? And we're just gonna move on to something else. And that now it's coming to bite them a little bit, right? It's becoming a bit confusing. You're like, oh
Yeah.
shit, what's happening? So
Yeah, last year what was interesting was there was I just was paying attention to this, right? We had I'm not sure if you're familiar that we had like auto strikes, and then a lot of our auto companies employees went on strike. We had the writers and the actors strike in LA, and there was almost like this kind of return to office push that was happening really here in the Bay Area as well,
yeah,
well nationwide. But and there was like a resistance to some of these massive tech companies as they were laying off of like, no, I'm not going back to the office. And there really
yeah,
seemed to be like a disconnected uh, labor resistance that was happening last year. That was really interesting. So yeah, but we'll see how 2024 turns out.
I completely resonate with that because right now I also work as a contractor, right, a consultant.
Hmm.
So I also go from project to project, and while going from project to project, there's always a difficulty because everyone wants to do it differently. Now, for 2 years, I've been working for this company where I had to go to the office once in 3 weeks. Life was good,
Mm,
right?
right. Yeah, it's
And
almost like a
now
road trip.
it's all like exactly, and you look
Yeah.
forward to it. Then you're like, you know
Yeah.
what, it's gonna be fun. But now I start a new project, and they want me in the office 1 day a week contractually, but 2 days a week preferably. And now I'm like, no, I'm only gonna do 1 day a week. But today
Yeah.
was very interesting because today is one of the office days for the people. But I said, you know what,
Yeah.
I'm doing remotely, and most of them, to be fair, live in the region, so it's easier for them. But
Right.
now I open up my Teams chat and I'm on call, and I see the whole table full, right? Like 9 people, and I see seven there. and then you suddenly feel bad, right? You're like, oh, you're destroying the
Yeah.
camaraderie, and I'm like, yeah, but hey, I did not sign up for this. Then one more person pops up on my call, and he's also from home, and I was like, thank God, at least there's one more person.
He's not calling out sick and you're the only one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it helped, but no, it's there's this push, and no matter how much you try to push back, the companies are still winning. They want you there, and they're trying to get you there, and
Yeah.
yeah, you can't stop it.
It's tough. I mean, like, and in the business of relationships, right? I mean, it is, it is possible to build relationships and collaborate digitally, but there is something to say about, the sharing of emotions and experiences and ideas and thoughts that come through body language, right? And so I like, I understand, right? Like, on the one hand, look, I hate commuting. I've commuted for most of my adult life,
Yeah.
and especially if it's like a long public transportation, or if I'm driving not great and the traffic is bad. But on the other hand, yeah, I mean, sometimes I do miss sitting in the same room with somebody. Like, there's like a certain kind of energy that you're separated from, and I think like that goes to say more about like the about some of the work that I do, actually, right? Is like trying to foster authentic connection in a world that seems to be getting further and further inauthentic and digital.
I understand, and I think that's a very good segue into the topic of what you do. But before we get into that,
Mm.
I already have hosts of questions about what you said, right? So I really want
Sure.
to
Yeah.
make this
Yeah.
into like a bridge in which you can
Yeah.
talk a little bit about what you do, but also like answer my questions about this. That I completely agree with you. Uh, you want to build relationships and authenticity, and doing it that over the digital landscape is a bit difficult, right? People are not
Hmm.
that there is a wall, and it's not just a
Hmm.
digital wall. Even if like you two people are sitting together and there's a phone in the middle, that already creates a wall. So
There
imagine
we
if it's
go.
a screen and you're not even next to each other, that does make it more
Right.
difficult. And I do get the point of building relationships at work, but there's also the other side of the argument where you're like, you know what, I'm staying at home because I want to build my relationships here, right? So now I
Yeah.
have a 6-month-old daughter, and I tell
Hmm.
everybody that I want to work from home because I want to be with my daughter and I want to be involved in every step. And after working, I can easily be here instead of commuting for 2 hours, get to put her to bed, get to feed her, get to be involved in the day to day. Or else, if I be going to work 2 days, 3 days a week, then I'll be missing those 3 days of her life, which I don't want to, right?
Right.
So,
And she would be missing you. Like, she would be missing your presence as well, right? I mean, to her,
exactly.
she's not, like, as we get older, we understand that you go to a job, right? But to her, you just disappear.
Exactly. And you don't want to do that. You don't want
Right.
to take that away from your child at such a young age. And we know
Right.
because we were raised in a different environment. Our parents, especially our fathers, did not really have to worry about these things. They were like, the mother is there, they're the
Right.
caretaker. I'm the breadwinner. But roles have shifted, right? And then now you
Yeah.
also want to be part caretaker. You're like, you know what? I want to be there. I want to play with her. I want to change the diapers. I want to do everything. I want to be involved in the process. And
Yeah.
this makes it easy. But then the company on the other hand goes like, yeah, but what about us? And you're like, yeah, but you're not family. No matter how much you want to portray yourself as family, but that's not family.
Yeah.
So there's a different type of relationship there. And sometimes companies don't really understand that. They want you to act like your family. They're like,
They
support
even
us.
say it sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like, you're
believe in
joining our
us.
family. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're like, is it really? I do really resonate with the Netflix's point of view of it's a football team, right? And everyone is trying
Mm.
to make each other better. But at the end of the day, it's a football team and they're not family because
Hmm.
it cannot be family. They care about each other in a professional capacity. You do
Hmm.
best on the pitch. That's what matters. After that, it's fine. If it is there, it is there. If it's not there, it's like a team. So those are my thoughts on the matter. I do want to hear what you think about that,
Yeah.
being an expert and proficient in relationships. And also,
Yeah.
that would be a good segue into your introduction, and then I can do some follow up questions. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so much comes up when you were talking about that, right? I mean, like, the first time we just kind of talked about it briefly was like, like, in order to be a loving and present parent, which, you know, two is better than one, right? I'm not trying to say that one is like one type of family is better than the other, but when raising children, right? I'm sure that actually having a partner present is helpful, and sure your partner would say the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And then for the child, right? Like, yeah, we forget that is so easily that children who come into the world come in like a tabula rasa. They're so impressionable and they don't understand, and usually they're very self-centric, and so it's really easy for children to take on that, like, my parent isn't here, they're very aware, and disappear. And it's easy for them to think it's their fault, that they've done something wrong, especially if,
Yeah.
like, if there's been fighting or tension, which I don't think would be happening with a 6 month old, but as
Yeah.
kids get older, right? So I think that's the first thing that comes to my mind is like, yeah, these competing demands between working and providing, and yet coming home and being a loving presence with your children. And yeah, I mean, you also talked about like the breadwinner and how those dynamics are changing. And so I think that, like, some of the things that I really um, really try to, even in my own life, right, working from home here, it's it's really important that you devote yourself fully to what is happening in the moment, right? And I think that kind of answers a few of the different points that I was trying to get at, right? So one of the issues that we run into with digital communication is, like, I believe that you're looking at me right now, but I actually don't know if you are or not. Like, you could be looking at another tab, you could be reading something else, right? Like, especially if somebody is typing and taking contemporaneous notes, they could also be doing a Google
Oh
search.
my
You don't
God,
know,
it's so annoying. It's so annoying.
right? Yeah. So there's an immediate, like, distrust, like, is this person actually with me? Do I really actually have this person? And some people actually then go, well, if they're not here, if they're checked out, I'll check out too.
Yeah.
But then the person was originally wasn't checked out, so then that second person checking out then causes the first person to check out, right? So there's
Like a
we
vicious
lose
cycle.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't have, like, real proper eye contact. I can look into the camera right now, but when I look back at you, I'm actually, looks like I'm looking away, right?
Yeah.
So there's plus then, like, there's notifications, and if your phone's not on do not disturb and you feel your watch vibrate or your phone vibrate, it kind of pulls you out a little bit. So, like,
Yeah.
the connection that we have is already really, really tenuous. So, really, when it comes to, like, trying to foster connection digitally, it's really, really important. Again, you devote yourself fully to what's present in the moment. You close as many tabs as you can. You turn your notifications off. You focus, right?
Yeah.
But then, if you're doing this from home, it's also really important, to the best of your ability, that you remove the other distractions as well, right? So, but the struggle is cognitively, mentally, right? I think there is something to say about creating separate zones and environments. And when you live and work in the same place, it's difficult for your brain actually to separate that you're doing something different in the same space,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
So, like, I'm going to take what seems like an obscure concept here. So I believe it's Judd Apatow. I could be wrong, but it's common for comedians to say, don't, like, when they're writing their material, don't write your material and criticize your material in the same place. So
Yeah.
you write your material somewhere, like over here, wherever your writing production area is, and then your refining and criticism area is somewhere else, because you need to get your critic out of the art, but then you need to get the critic in to review it. And if you do that in the same place, both those parts of
Yeah.
you come up at the same time.
And yeah, you
So
will
it's
not
another
move
struggle.
forward, basically. Yeah, you will not gonna move.
Right.
Basically, you're
Right.
telling me that environment really plays a role in what you're doing, right? So if you're in the right
Yeah.
headspace, it could be digital, working remotely, for example, that
Hmm.
you have this monitor and everything that you're working on, and you go like, you know what? It's perfect. I can play my games on it, I can work on it, I can do everything on it, and life is so easy. But it's not, because suddenly you're
Right.
working 24/7. My wife always
Yeah.
complains to me that she's like, it feels like you're always working, and I'm like, I don't want to. But for some
Right.
reason, if the computer is open, I naturally gravitate towards checking my mails, checking for new job. Because as a contractor, that's also a thing of working as a contractor. You're always
Yep.
on the edge, right? Because you're always looking for your next gig. So you're like,
Yeah.
you know what? I
You're
have
on the
this for
hunt.
3. Exactly. So you every day
Yeah.
want to check if there's something. Every day giving interviews. I give an interview every week. Even though I have a
Hmm.
role, I give an interview every week because I'm like, hey, you never know. You want to keep the pipeline filled. And then it's just like, yeah, but is this how you want to live? I take one day off
Mm.
now for my daughter, and that day my
Hmm.
wife works, so I need to be really present for my daughter. And that was yesterday. And I had so much fun in the morning because how? Because I did not turn on my computer on at all. I was like, you know what? No computer on. So I didn't even get bothered. I deleted all the apps from my phone, social media, also emails. I did not realize how distracting emails are till I actually deleted from my phone.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
actually did not know how useful email is till I actually deleted it from my phone. Because
Yeah.
now I'm in different places. Like over the weekend, I took them to some museum or something. That I was like, okay, here are the tickets, and they're like, oh, can you show us the tickets? And I'm like, oh wait, it's on my email, and I don't have my
Right.
email on my phone. So I tell
Yeah.
my wife, can you please give me your phone? I'll log into my email, or maybe before leaving, I'll forward her the email or from my computer so she has it. So it tells you how like intertwined technologies become to you, that at the
Yeah.
end of the day of yesterday I was feeling like there's something missing, a little void. And my wife was like, did you enjoy today? You were telling me in the morning you were having so much fun with our daughter and everything. I'm like, I did. I had a lot of fun, but it feels like something is missing.
Yeah.
And
What
then
was that, you
today,
think?
I have no idea. And today I
Mm.
get back into work and suddenly I'm very energetic again. So
Hmm.
it's also like if I don't work every day a little bit, it feels like I'm losing. Because that's the contractor mentality, right? That you want to
Yeah.
work, you want to provide value. The capitalist mindset is that if you don't provide value, then you're not doing something right. So in the morning, if I'm like enjoying relationships and just spending money and I'm not doing
Hmm.
anything worthwhile in terms of making money, then I go like, did I? It feels like something is missing. I
Right.
don't enjoy
Yeah.
weekends anymore. Imagine.
Yeah, and like and that's really pervasive, right? It really starts
Yeah.
kind of small, then builds on itself over time. Like to your like what you said there, right? In the capitalist mindset, if you don't provide value, like I'd even go further. It's like if you don't provide value, you're valueless,
Yeah.
right? I'm
Yeah.
not saying that that's true. I don't agree with that, but it's like if you're not providing, you're worthless, right? And that's I mean I think like in one-on-one interactively, like with people in relationships, I think it's really easy for us to kind of attack the leaves and the branches on that, right? And
Yeah.
like remember, like, no, I have value. I have value as a partner. I have value as a father. But
Yeah.
then like there's like this onslaught of information that comes from, you know, uh, uh, coworkers, bosses, acquaintances, media, right, where it's like it just kind of floods back in, right? If you're not
Yeah.
producing, you're worthless. And it takes an incredible amount of effort to remember that you're important, that you matter.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I
Hmm.
agree with you.
Yeah.
And to add on to that point, so I feel like we have talked a lot about this and how do we want to be involved and how the capitalist mindset really takes out the human
Hmm.
out of the humanity that we want to build, right? So now it's all about material and it's about product and
Hmm.
etc. Even right now, like I'm talking to you and I want to be fully involved in this conversation, but I have to take like clips. So I'm clicking on the screen that Richard says
Yeah.
something really nice, so I need to clip it so that my team can actually make a short form content out of it.
Yep.
And it can be distracting, it can be annoying to you, to me, and be like, hey, it doesn't feel like we're present in the meeting. But that's because we're always running to find value. It's like
Yeah.
that's become your, what do you call it, the north star in how you judge relationships, how you
Yeah.
judge work, how you judge quality. Everything is to be fine. The saying that if it looks stupid but it works, it's not stupid, right? That's
Right.
also
Yeah.
like a capitalist mindset. It doesn't matter how aesthetically pleasing it is. It doesn't matter how spiritually filling it can be. It's a job, and if it gives you
Yeah.
money, it works. And you're like, yeah, but is that the only criteria?
Right. And like, I'm really glad you shared that example, right? Because I I struggle with the same thing too, right? Like I'll get into a coaching session or like a discovery call with someone and it's going really great. And, they're sharing and being vulnerable and they're coming to these insights and I'm asking these really dynamic questions and learning and getting to know them and kind of, mapping things and putting things together for them. And then, near the end, it just kind of sinks like a stone because I got to talk about pricing. Right. And it's
Eh,
like, and the thing is like, like I struggle with that because I'm like, well, I just want to help people. Like, I just want to support them in their growth. Like, I just
yeah,
want people to actualize, like actualize the highest potential of their own lives and their relational lives, because I think relationships are the most important thing. They're the biggest predictor of your happiness. And so, and sadly, especially for men, we're not taught how to relate, I think, very well, right? And I'm not going
yeah,
to point the finger at anybody. I think it's just
yeah,
I think it's just like a broad problem.
yeah,
So then to kind of, you know, actually start to, send a lifeline out to somebody and go, oh, by the way, I can't keep doing this unless you pay me. It feels like I'm like, but
Yeah,
I have rent to pay. Like I have like,
it's a machine. Yeah,
it's a machine, and we're all like, we're a part of it, right? Like,
yeah,
and it's, I think I've really struggled with idealism, and like, I thought I think it's a bit, uh, I don't want to say egocentric of me, but like this idea that like I can tear it down. Like, no, this is a system that's, hundreds of years old and embedded all throughout the world. And like,
yeah,
so I think like this, like what I can do is play the game, but in a way
yeah.
where, like I try to bring a little bit of humanity to it.
I love that sigh. And I want to take this forward. There are a lot of things I still want to talk about, but I still didn't get a proper
Sure.
introduction, and I apologize for that because I keep
Not a
asking
problem.
questions and questions. So I
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
want to like take and yeah, you talk about coaching, you talk about relational coaching. I think that is the expertise. So please
Mm.
take the time right now to introduce yourself properly, introduce what you do, what is your project, what is your company? Because I also have a lot of questions about this discovery calls and everything because I work in the same
Yeah. Yeah.
space, and my
Okay.
God,
Yeah.
it's annoying. But before we
Yep.
get into that, let's who is Richard? Let's just go there.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Richard Wyatt, and I'm a men's coach and relationship coach, and I help sensitive, intelligent men alchemize their relational pain, loneliness, and fear into resilience, connection, and power. And my romantic partner and now business partner and I started our relationship coaching practice, Ascendant Connection. And she and I work either with individuals or actually with couples, um, to co-create purposeful lives with fulfilling intimate interpersonal and professional relationships. And that's all based on the belief that the relationships are the they're the biggest predictor of your happiness, right? Like at the end of life, let's get real deep here.
Mhm.
At the end of life, I think, you the most important thing you look back on are the people that were in your life and the moments that you had with them. And um, I have my own personal story about how I kind of struggled with connecting to my emotions and therefore connecting with people, because emotions are the currency of connection. Um, and how I I'm not going to say healed myself, but like got to a place where actually I learned a lot. And I turned around and saw that there were a lot of people, especially men, who were in a very similar situation and not a lot of really healthy resources out there for them. So
Yeah.
uh, I've kind of made it my mission to help people not feel so in pain, alone, and afraid.
Yeah. And to talk about it in detail, what the element you're talking about, loneliness,
Mm-hmm.
I want to take that piece and really like focus on it because I completely appreciate what you're doing. As a guy, uh, I've been there, right? I know that, and I always try to, you can say, prioritize communication. I always say that no matter what the problem is, communication will help you get a bit closer to solving it, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what. They're like, yeah, but what if I don't have any money? I'm like, even that, if you communicate well, if you budget well, you're gonna fix it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
communicate. That's the first step, is communication. You really need to like talk to your partner, to yourself, to the people around you. You really need to communicate. It's really important. And I think men usually struggle. What they struggle with is the communication aspect, because this goes back to the whole breadwinning mentality and the capitalist mindset that we live in, that it's all about bringing value, and a value of a person is judged by the role that society assigns to them, and the society
Right.
has assigned the role of a breadwinner to a man. And now it is shifting, but some men still believe that that's their role and that's their identity. And there
Yes.
was this really positive video on this, that how the rates of depression in men are going up, and the rates of depression in young men is also going up, like young and older men. And that's all due to the concept of marriage being shifted, but the expectation from these men not being shifted. So now, as a woman, you are expected to work, but also you can help out around the house. But as a man, if you choose to stay at home more than work, you will still be judged for it. But as a woman, you
Mm-hmm.
won't be judged for it. As a man, you'll be like, no. you need to work. How can you not provide for your family? Yeah, like, yeah, but my wife was supposed to also provide for the family by being at the house all the time, but now she's allowed to go outside, right? So
Mhm.
why can't I be allowed to go inside? Right? And they're like, no. So the whole argument is based on the premise that the institution of marriage has not evolved yet to support the men as much as it
Yeah.
is evolved to support the women. And I don't know how much I agree with it, because I come from a very you can say underdeveloped country in terms of relationship or general how do you call it, rights. I guess rights would be a right way to put it, because I don't want to like say it's a bad thing, because like it's just a different mentality from the West, right? So I come from Pakistan, and
Mhm.
there the women are still expected to take care of the house, and men are still expected to bring value to the house in terms of being the
Mhm.
breadwinners. So, and we enjoy that, and we're like, this is how it works. So when you look at this institution, you go like, yeah, but this is shaky because now you have this and that. So it's not like men have it worse here. Women do as well, but back home as well, women also bear the brunt of doing more work, domestic work, and taking care of the kids and everything. So bringing it all together, I really feel like communication is like the first step in the right direction, and I feel like this can really work with what you also try to preach to people about their loneliness and how they can fix it. So what are your thoughts on my statement so far?
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, right? And I think what really resonated. You were talking about a video that you saw talking about depression in men and things. I also remember a video. I think it was Chris Rock had a joke about, and like it was a joke, but it kind of really kind of hit true. And he was talking about how love for men can be conditional,
Yeah,
and like if you aren't, and we kind of talked about this, right? If you're not providing something, you're worthless, right? Like, so really the love for men, and it's, I mean, of course, like I'm speaking broadly here, this is a broad stroke, right? So you have to be very careful, right? that
indeed.
that individuals might not be as connected to this as we think they are, right? We don't want to
Yeah,
project and say everyone thinks this way, but
yeah,
yeah, sometimes for men, if you've had a rough year, especially with layoffs or firing, your value as a man is lowered in the eyes of the public, and sometimes with your romantic partner. We really struggle with expressing weak emotions, right? That can repel some people. So yeah, I think it's, sometimes there's an extra there's an added element of, yeah, if you're not working, if you're not providing, then there's something wrong with you as a man, right? And like that really hits us in our worthiness.
yeah,
um but to be fair, I mean, I'm saying all this really as somebody who's like, we all need to pick up around the house. Right? Like we all need to help one another. I think like we something that I really um think about a lot is like the different types of labor. And um there's something that, some people are aware of it. Like there's emotional labor, right?
yeah,
And especially in a deeply committed relationship, if you aren't able to process what's happening with you emotionally, you're actually outsourcing that labor onto your romantic partner. And so, so we think about like all the, like, when we think of labor, we think of like actually physically doing things, but
mm,
there's different types of labor that are actually happening. And
yeah,
so, yeah, there's, we can help out around the house, but like we could also help out around the house by helping ourselves.
yeah,
um but to your point about like loneliness, yeah, I think, we're also really conditioned from a very young age and constantly that we have to do everything ourselves, right? Like we have to do everything by ourselves, and to ask for help is weak, and if you're
mm,
not able to do it, there's something wrong with you, right? And um there's a few things that happen because of that. I mean, first, you rob the people of your life the ability to help you, right? And
yeah,
like I think like I think you and I maybe can relate, like as very hardworking, independent people. Like we take pride in the fact that I built our website by myself. I'm like, oh,
mm,
that was great. I did a great job there. But when I told my friends about that, I told them about how I was setting up the email, and like making sure that doesn't go to spam folders and things like that. I had
yeah,
somebody who, like, I had a friend of mine who worked at Google and helped build spam detection, and he was like, Richard, I did that. Like I could have helped you with that. You didn't have to spend hours figuring out how to do that yourself, right? And so like I
Yeah.
really robbed him of the ability of 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 giving something to me, which was giving his presence, giving his labor, giving his help.
Yeah.
Um,
I think I think just to add a little bit there, I really love that story because we always expect, oh no, we don't want to be burdened on other people, but as as humans, we love giving.
mm,
That's the best thing we do. And of course, some
yeah.
of us love giving more than others in terms of some of us will be willing to help and do more, cook and as you said, support with their expertise, with their presence. Some of us would just love to give advice. And sometimes
Hmm.
we don't like those kind of people as well, because all you're doing is just giving advice. But in the end, they're giving.
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we as people love giving all the time. So if you have people around you who want to give something more than just their advice, be it their time, be it their labor, be it their expertise, it's endearing.
Yeah.
It's love. It's a different kind of love that you're offering to them by showing your vulnerability. But we, for some reason, want to be the giver. And it's like a weird system. Like
Mm-hmm.
it will always work in give and takes. But as men, for some reason, we always want to be the giver. We're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, but you take from us only.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's an interesting balance you have to strike, right? I think like so part of the what would I use? I guess methodology or philosophy. I don't know what you would call it, but like I'm really influenced. I was really heavily influenced in the beginning by a concept known as, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but masculine and feminine polarity. And and we have to be really careful about using these words
Yeah.
because, again, kind of talking to what I was saying earlier, there's a lot of people out there who are dishing up some pretty unhealthy stuff and using these words, but to really boil it down to like its most um, basic way of like convenient or conveying, right, is um, you know uh, they're distinct complementary energies that everyone has, right? So um, and they're a collection of energies. I think we see this, like yin and yang and masculine and feminine,
Mm.
but they're everybody has a mixture of both of these energies in them, right? Some people tend
Yeah.
to be more masculine dominant, some people tend to be more feminine dominant, and then some people are pretty balanced and neutral between the two, and that's fine. There's no judgment there. It's just like an observation and an acknowledgement. And so typically, yeah, the giving is typically more of like a masculine energy, and receiving is more of a feminine energy. And so yes, there's for a masculine dominant person, there's just this like, I want to give, I want to provide. But then there's also, you do have a feminine part of yourself. And if you reject the feminine in yourself, not only will the feminine reject you, but you cut yourself off from the ability of actually receiving love when it's appropriate for you.
Yeah.
And then
When you need it.
then like taking a step back, we're all humans, right? We're all humans.
Yeah.
Like we all want to give something to one another, and we all want to receive something from one another. But it is a practice. It takes practice. It takes, like, somebody has to show us how to do it before we know how to do it. Or I
Yeah.
think more accurately, someone has to remind us how to do it, because we used to know, like, we all, like, as infants, you have a child, this, like, they know how to receive. That's all they know how, right? Like
Yeah.
they just,
Yeah.
right. And if they don't know how to receive, or they make it known that they aren't getting what they need, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's almost like, it isn't like, hey, we have to teach you how to do this. It's a little bit more like, hey, we have to kind of erode away a lot of these walls that have come up, and get you back in touch with, how do you healthily give love to a person, and how do you healthily receive it from someone.
Yeah, it's baffling how much I hear stuff that resonates with me
Mm,
in this conversation, because I completely have been trying to live the same way. Because yeah, you can always give something, and my examples might not make sense to you, so I'll give you some, but in the sense that it's those little things for me. So it's not just like giving love and taking love, but like stuff like, for example, jokes, right? we have a group of friends who love to banter with each other, right? And that's fine. We're consenting to it. So it's not really bullying till an extent where you're like, you know what? It's fun, but it's only fun if it's give and take.
Hmm.
Right? It's like I make jokes on you a little bit, and then you give me some leeway and let me have the win because maybe tomorrow you're gonna make a joke on me, and I need to give you the
Yep.
leeway. But if it just becomes like a one v one pissing contest, that if someone says something to you and then you're like, no, I have to reply, and then the person says, oh no, I have to reply, then it's a long like 30-minute WhatsApp chain of just one word replies or
Yeah.
GIFs or memes just trying to one upping each other. And then you don't even feel better afterwards. You
Yeah.
just go like, okay, that was a waste of time. But if you just enjoy the tasteful joke, you're like, okay, he made a joke at my expense. It's fine. I consent to it
Yeah.
because he will consent to, she will consent to tomorrow letting me make a joke on them.
Right.
And that it has to be give and take, even in these little trivial
It's
things.
play. It's play.
It's play.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah,
like, and
exactly.
like, and it's, I mean, like the undercurrent of what I heard you talk about was like competition. Right. And, like, there's healthy competition and there's unhealthy competition. And I think that like,
Yeah.
I think that we can see this delineation in a lot of different things, but I think things start to become a little unhealthy when it becomes more focused on dominance and submission, which we can talk about that in a different context,
Yeah.
separately, right? But I think that um, I think collaboration in most of human interaction is what's most important, right? And there is, to your
Yeah.
point, when you talk about like, oh, I'm giving a joke, and I know that like this person will take the joke and then they're gonna throw it back on me. There's like, it's like a dance, right? It isn't so much like a fight
Yeah.
or a struggle.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's okay to let them have the win,
Yeah.
right? Because I said it's a competitive nature in you
Yeah.
that okay, you made a joke and they replied to your joke, and more, and because it's a group chat, so as you said, it's more like it's like a performance to see who
Yeah.
can make the most people laugh, right? So you make a joke, you get some reactions. They make a joke, they get more reactions.
Yeah.
Now, naturally, what you want to do is to reply back because you're like, you know what, I want more reactions.
Hmm.
But rationally, what you just do is, you know what, take the loss. You tried it,
Yeah.
you lost. They won today. Let them have it. Let them enjoy the day. Because what's gonna happen if you try to give back again and they try to give back again? It's not just gonna ruin it for you. It's gonna ruin for the people who are watching as well.
Yeah.
And it just ruins it for everybody. All because you just don't know how to
Right.
give way, how to give space, and just like let it be. And
Hmm.
I think that is element I like trying to now bring it back to the whole circle of our conversation that started, right? With how when we're trying to build something, it has this underlying tendencies of the capitalist society that we are built on, right? So it's not about just having a space of giving and taking and emotional and spiritual and mental. No, it's all about value that you can add.
Hmm.
So in this context, that when you make people laugh, that's the value you're adding.
Hmm.
And if someone tries to make more people laugh more than you at your expense, your natural response is to be like, hey, I don't feel valued here, so let me get back so
Hmm.
that I can gain my value back. But no, there's enough value to be shared, and that's
Yeah.
fine. You don't need to. It's not a zero sum game as much as capitalism wants you to believe it,
Yep.
right? It's not zero sum. If that it was zero sum, you won't be just earning money by putting money aside in a stock market and it keeps growing. It's not a zero sum game, right? You can always make more money. So I want to take a bit of that topic there, but
Sure.
before I move there, because I want to go back to talking about your coaching experience
Yeah.
and the struggle that you have in trying to help people but yet have this underlying tone of capitalism paying rent
Yeah.
and everything
Yeah.
because I personally face that a lot and I have loads of questions that I want to ask you on that. But before we move on to that, what do you think about so far that we talked about with loneliness, with capitalism, and how do we end this conversation?
I don't think we can. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
yeah. So I like, yeah, I think we're kind of dancing around the same subject, right? And I'm really, really grateful that you brought in zero sum, right? Because it is like who can take the hill and who can keep it and keep everyone off the hill, right? It's
yeah,
like, and there is this kind of, I don't want to say an overcorrection, but there's this push, right, to be like, that's mine, not yours. And that is a zero sum game. And all that does is create fewer and fewer winners and more quote unquote
yeah,
losers, right?
yeah,
And I was thinking about this before our call today, just kind of going over my notes and everything, thinking about zero sum game. And it's like, if there can only be one winner, only one winner, it's a bit delusional to think that it could be you. Right? but some people believe it. I'm like, look, I believe it. And there's a part of me that's like, well, yeah, it could be me. It's like, well, yeah, because I'm the center of my experience. Of course I'm going to think that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and like, it is really, really difficult when that mindset kind of permeates everything. You know, you have to be on guard and be on the defense, because if you want to take that hill and keep that hill, you got to keep people out, right? And so that, like, you build up
Yeah.
these fortress walls, because you know people are threatening to take your things away, and so you just end up with a bunch of things and alone.
Exactly. It's like you are, you can say, a consequence of your own doing.
Hmm.
And I think that is also very, very important to discuss it. So let's segue before we move on. Like, I see this a lot, Richard, and I don't know what your thoughts are on it, that people sometimes don't realize that their actions have consequences
Hmm.
and that they are a product of their actions. So I see people like, I'm stuck where I am, I don't know what I can do. Or people are like, that, oh, why does these things keep happening to me, or something like that. So I have a friend of mine who I was having these discussions with very thoroughly, and we were discussing. He's like, yeah, I know somehow a little bit that I'm doing this by choice. I'm not happy about it, but I do know that it's my conscious choice. And I'm like, yeah, at least you know, right?
Hmm.
At least you know, because most people don't even know. They try to externalize the blame. They
Yep.
try to externalize everything. I was having a conversation on parenting as well, and in that as well, they were like, with a lot of these things happening all around the Western world, that okay, are the schools are teaching my children bad things, and the religious places in Pakistan, they're teaching my children bad things, and I'm like, but what are you teaching your child?
Yeah.
Why are you externalizing the blame that okay, they're not doing their job? But are you doing your job? If you do your job pretty well, there's a chance that your kid might not get that influenced by anything else, because the first education brings it home. So why are you externalizing it? So what are your thoughts on people trying to externalize the consequences, the actions, and
Mm.
everything, because they're like, it's not my fault. Even in relationships, right? Hey,
Oh, all the
I did
time.
not do it.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, it was you.
Yeah. So much comes up, right? Like I've absolutely been there. And again, I'm not going to pretend like I'm perfect, right? Like I've completely, that I'm, sitting in this ivory tower and looking down with judgment upon everybody. Like I still screw up, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like I became really, really conscious of it in myself. Um, uh, about 4 years ago. So just a little bit about my story and how I came to do this. Right, going into 2020, I had I was married. I'm not now, but we had
Yeah.
planned to go to LA and had all this good money saved up, and then fast forward a year later, New Year's Eve 2020, going into 2021, my marriage had ended. I was broke. I was unemployed. I was living at my mom's. Right, and I was like, this is not how I
Yeah.
thought my life was going to turn out. this was
Yeah.
this was not. And and I I can't really say where it came from, but there was this, just really, I can remember very distinctly this moment where I had this conscious awareness that I could either continue pointing the finger outward and remain in this, what I now know as like a victim, villain, hero triangle, right? Where I'm constantly
Yeah.
trying to either, oh, I'm the victim of my circumstances, or oh, I'm the villain. I'm a bad guy. I'm the one who's all at fault. Or like, oh no, I'm going to go save the hero, like getting stuck in this little
Yeah.
triangle. Or I could do the really, really painful thing and point the finger inward at my own stuff and then do the work to grow. And,
Yeah.
in my own journey, what I've realized is that, it's almost like living with like a simmering depression or anxiety that always kind of comes and goes. It's almost like a joint pain that
Yeah.
you're living with, because you don't want to do the elective surgery that could be painful for a while, and then you recover and get
Yeah.
better. um, and that was really what happened. Was you know my house had to figuratively burn to the ground for me to realize and go,
Nice.
I've been sitting on some stuff here and I haven't been doing
Yeah.
my work to grow as a person, and now
Yeah.
look at the consequences that I'm facing. And it was,
Yeah.
I you know I don't say this as like a condemnation or a judgment of the people who don't choose to 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 own their stuff, right? Because that is really, really scary. It's really, really
Yeah.
painful. It's confusing. And, also, if you're someone like me who is really prone to self criticism, it is fuel for like this self hatred, right? And like,
Yeah.
so it can be difficult to navigate. It could take some time. But that's the benefit of leaning on help, right? That's the benefit of like genuine reflection and deep probing questions, and somebody who will hold you when you're kind of falling apart for a little bit.
Yeah, it's like it's so difficult, and it's so powerful to be able to recognize. And yes, I can give you all the props for being able to recognize this, but even you know more than I do that looking back at the past is still easier, right? Because of how far you've come
Yeah.
along. You're like, you know what? I
Right.
I, I did that, and now I can talk about it. And what I want to make people to understand from these stories is that even if you're not there and you are in figuratively at that time when your house is burning, you can still take actions. You can still talk about it. You can
Yeah.
still make it okay.
Right.
And that all works by
Yeah.
making understanding that we aren't adequate or we aren't capable of handling things alone. And there's nothing wrong with that. We are social species. And what I hear from your stories is
Yeah.
that the work that you need to do on yourself, it's not just work that you can do alone, right? It is work that you need to do with the people around you. You need help. Ask
Yeah.
for help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. It's, like, I'm really glad you said that, right? Because there's a lot you can do on
Yeah.
your own. It might take a long
Yeah.
time, right? But you can really only kind of get so far. It's very similar. I'm not sure if you go to the gym and work out or have a
Yeah.
personal trainer or anything like that, right? But like you can get 80% there, and 80% is great. Let's get
Yeah.
clear, right? But like then there's this extra push that you really need somebody to genuinely reflect. It's almost like you need someone in the gym to
Yeah.
spot you, right? And it's those, like, if we're going to use the analogy of a personal trainer or working out in the gym, it's those final reps is where you get the most growth,
Exactly.
right? And you need someone there to help you with it. They're not actually lifting they're not actually pulling the weight off your
Yeah.
chest. They're just there to help you push through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's totally possible. There are, and my journey started with books, countless books, books like King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, or books by Esther Perel, right? I consumed as many possible books from the Gottmans and, who is it? It was Sue Johnson, right? Like, I consumed as many relationship books as I possibly could. Um, and it got me really
Yeah.
far. It took me a long time,
Yeah.
but, you know, then, but there was still, like, most of the growth that I had is through my men's
Yeah.
group and through group therapy for male identifying
Yeah.
individuals. So, I still needed people.
You need people. That's
Yeah.
the thing. And it's difficult to ask for help. And I think
Mhm.
that's a good way to close this topic of asking for help, is that it's gonna be difficult. It's like a muscle you need to train, in which,
Correct.
like discipline, like anything, that you need to ask yourself every single time, am I doing the right thing? I have the same with food, right? I eat, and
Mhm.
then 10 minutes later, I'm like, I'm hungry. Then I have to ask myself, am I really hungry? Why do I have to eat
Yeah.
this again and again? And it's like a muscle you need to keep repeating and practicing and practicing. And hopefully you get there where asking for help is the first thing you do, rather than think like, you know what, I can figure this out on my own. Because that's your
Mhm.
first default right now. Right. And then you need to change that
Yeah.
default.
I think there are many different ways to start. I think one is like to really think about whether or not you deserve help.
Yeah.
And sadly, I think a lot of people like are operating on the assumption that they don't. And that's a tragedy. That's
Yeah.
really sad because we all deserve help. We
Yeah.
we let's, I don't know, I'll speak strangely here, but like we all we all woke up naked and screaming without any understanding of what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to figure that out for thousands of years and have come so far. But
Yeah.
like, this is a very strange experience that we're having. And to try to figure it all out on your own is, uh, that's a burden that just crushes me. And I'm sure it
Yeah.
crushes everyone else too.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, well, then let's try to figure it out together.
Together. Yeah. Try to ask for help. Try to use the power of group thinking, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
there is this saying. It's like a proverb of sorts, right? If you wanna run fast, then you run alone. But if you wanna run further, then you run together. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can be fast if you're doing it to get things, because yeah, talking to people, asking for help is a slower process, but you will go further in your life. And yeah, you
Yeah.
will never hit that ceiling that you talk about at 80%, right? You can get there very
Yeah.
quickly, but then that 20% is going to be a hard climb, because people with support systems will be able to get there much better than you do. Not quicker,
Right.
but better.
Right.
They will get
And
there.
that I think that like there's something to that, right? There's like you have to be patient, right? You have to be patient with yourself because if you're learning something new, you're going to screw up. You're going to make
Mm.
mistakes, right? And I see
Yeah,
this all the time. Like that's something that I really try to provide is just this like this compassionate, loving, curious space where it's almost like an emotional dojo, right? Where
yeah,
people can come in, they can say what's on their mind or what they're feeling or try to connect that. They can screw up while doing it. And it's like, hey, I'm not going anywhere, right? Like,
yeah,
it's okay. We can practice this. It's new to you, right?
yeah,
But it's going to take some time. It also takes time to build a network, right? When you
yeah,
start from nothing, when you have no connections, right? Which is what happens for a lot of people. It
yeah.
takes time. It takes time. It's
Exactly.
like, you know, like the image that just came to my mind is like gravity, right? Like if there's a single particle floating in the universe, right? Eventually it has to kind of find another one, and then another one, and then another one, and
Yeah,
like that growth is it's exponential. It does take time, and
yeah.
so I think yeah, there's a lot that like I can think of and talk about, but
I think yeah, I think this is a wonderful place to tone it down a little bit, and like to move towards the end, because we've been talking for 50 minutes and it doesn't feel like it, because I had so much fun, and
I
I still
appreciate
have
that.
so
Yeah,
many,
me too.
so, yeah, so many things that I still have things to like close off. But yeah, we can't do that.
Mm.
We'll try to do that some other time. But now I want to give you some space to talk a little bit about your men's groups, or any other programs that you run, and just generally what do you have here at Ascent, and what can you offer? I hope I said the name correctly, because I think it's
Ascendant connection. Yeah, ascendant
Ascendant
connection.
Connection. So
Yeah.
please, where can people find you? What do you have for them? Anything that you want to share? This is the time.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah. So my fiance and I we started our relationship coaching practice together.
Yeah,
It's called Ascendant Connection. We have a website. I can also be. I'm also on Instagram. I'm trying to branch out on social
yeah,
media. So
yeah,
there's not a big following right now, but
yeah,
I'm just getting started there. And I can be found on Instagram at Richard T Wyatt.
yeah,
That's Wyatt.
yeah,
And really, yeah. So a lot of what I provide with individuals, I work mostly with men, and I think most of the men, they come in one of two camps. They either come like almost like this. They've built this. I don't want to sound judgmental here, but they've built this prison, this
yeah,
emotional prison where they've kept everyone out for so long, and they've waken up and realized that they're really, really lonely.
yeah,
And there's a lot of men who kind of come to me in a crisis that was similar to mine, where everything is burning down around them and they don't know what to do.
yeah,
And so I think like at first, a lot of it is just trying to kind of orient in the world and put together a plan.
yeah,
I am building a program for men who are interested that kind of over the course of a few months kind of follows the hero's journey a little bit
yeah,
to really get to a sense of self-love, purpose, knowing your truth. And then I work a lot with archetypes too, so like
yeah,
abandoning the hero archetype and really embracing the loving king.
yeah,
And of course we could probably talk for way more about that, but then on the other hand too, my partner Janine and I, we work together with couples as well. And so you know like we really believe that that intentional deep connection can be grown, and when you do that you can realize your relationship's full potential. I think
yeah,
something that was really important to us when we first got together was embracing what we call the third entity, right?
yeah,
I mean, there's one person, there's another person, but then there's that third entity, which is the relationship itself. And
yeah,
almost it has its own personality, it has its own wants, it has its own like needs. And so through authentic connection and really deep intimacy, you can tap into what that relationship wants, and you can work together to realize that's full potential. And it's a really, really beautiful thing. So that's something that Janine and I want to work with a lot of couples with on doing.
Oh, indeed, that is actually a very beautiful concept. I really enjoyed it. The third entity, and it's something I can also read a little bit about and learn a little bit more about, because it always helps to keep improving and iterating on your
Mm.
relationships, on yourself, and everything. Life. I always say life is a continuous journey of improvement, and uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what it is. And those who don't want to are always finding excuses and externalizing it to, like, I'm content where I am, or I'm happy. And yeah, you can be happy, but I'm not saying growth, but support and
Mm.
improvement is always good for you, because growth has a negative tendency now due to capitalism. Everything needs to grow. So the people have like
Right.
a like a negative connotation against the growth, that, why can't you be happy where you are? No, we are happy where we are, but you always
Mm-hmm.
have room for improvement, because when
Right.
you improve for the people around you, not just for yourself. So you're collectively improving as a group. And I think that's very
Right.
important. But that was wonderful, Richard. Thank you so much for that. I do have a lot of other things, but we will always find
Of
time to do
course.
that. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time. I hope you had fun, because I had a lot of fun, and it was
I
wonderful
had
to
a
talk to you.
blast. This was great. Yeah, I really,
Great,
really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And well,
great.
maybe, in the future I can come back. I'm
Definitely,
just inviting
definitely.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
definitely. There's lots more we can talk about, and I would love to see if we can
Yeah.
make something happen again. But for now, thank you so much for listening, everybody. Thank you so much, Richard, and I'll talk to you next time. If you haven't already, do check out the roundtable. We are live with our first session already, and we are looking for the upcoming quarter participants. So if you think you want an accountability group where you come in and get shit done, roundtable is the place to be. So sign up using the link below, and I'll see you there. Thank you so much.